Hi, this is Justin Orndorff, and I'm going to walk through how to use the throwing scheduler. And before we do that, it's important to understand that the throwing scheduler is going to consist of training phases, performance phases, games, and then bullpens. Okay, so training phases, just to kind of recap, are going to be what your client's going to be doing at sub-max intensity, kind of more of a recovery days or skill building days where we're not having to perform at high intensity. Performance phases are high intensities, whether that be a long toss day, which we refer to as distant throwing, whether that might be a high intensity bullpen or games. Okay, so those are the performance phases. The bullpens associated are those custom bullpens that you can create to test the ability of your client to execute pitches at a very high level. And then finally we have games. So we want you to log the games to which your clients are performing in, especially the pitch counts and innings, so we can make sure that information is then put into your daily throwing schedule for your clients. So the throwing schedule is going to be something that you have to work at and then update daily so you can get the most information in. But as we get into a season, and you start to understand where your clients are, but most importantly, if you're not seeing your clients every day, we want you to make sure that you're updating the throwing scheduler and then you're sending out that throwing program for the week so you can account for what your clients are going to be doing prior to arriving at practice or games. Okay, so let's go through the throwing schedule, how to build out the throwing schedule, the ins and outs of it, so you can start to get to work and produce these throwing programs for your clients. Thank you.
Hi, this is Justin Orndorff, and I want to provide a walkthrough or how to use the throwing scheduler in DVS Bullpen 3.0. So we're here on the home screen. We have chosen our fictitious player in Nuke LaLoosh from Bull Durham, and we're going to go through the components which make up the throwing schedule, making sure you understand those, and then how that applies into the daily throwing schedule in terms of inputs and outputs. So let's go ahead and get into the throwing tab over here. So when I click on the throwing tab, you'll see there's training phases, performance phases, bullpens, and games. Now, as an overview, the training phases are at sub-max intensities. The performance phases are anything that your players are doing at high intensity. You have your bullpens, and you have your games. Okay, so in any of these phases, you'll be able to see, I can click on a new training phases. I can do TP2, 3, or 4. I can put the relative intensity. I can put some notes about that day. Was pain or soreness present? And then obviously making sure that you log in the date. And in our legend, there's always kind of a recommendation in terms of throws for each phase, but it kind of gives you a nice little tool where that particular day I can actually update the actual distance if I wanted to. So here in performance phases, you'll see kind of the same functionality. I can choose whether or not he was in performance phase 2, 3, or 4. Now these are our distance throwing or long toss phases, in which you'll see is I can again put my distance in, which is there's a recommendation built in for you. I got my date, was pain or soreness present, and then we like to abide by 7 out of 10 for each set, which is kind of deemed relevant or a standard to move on from like 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 in the performance phases. But you can obviously log those, and then the system will recognize whether there was 7 out of 10 in 3 consecutive sets. And if there was, it'll then automatically default into whichever performance phase your pitcher has successfully completed. Okay, so it's going to default to performance phase 2, but it may provide you that update of 3 or 4 depending on where they are. So you can log that. Obviously, you have your bullpens here with different types of bullpen scenarios that you can create. But if it's a given day where someone's coming in just to throw a bullpen, you want to log that bullpen. You can also put in all the relevant things about that bullpen here and then make sure the date is correct. It's always going to default to the current date of which you are currently using the software. And then most importantly, especially in season, you want to make sure you account for the game. So here with Nuke, you'll see prior to this demo here, I put a game in here for April 10th. I'm actually doing this on April 13th, so I had him throw on this past Saturday 7 innings, 90 pitches, and I can add in all the relevant data from that game if I would like, but make sure you always do the pitch count, the innings pitch, and update the soreness. Okay, so I could quickly say, was soreness present during, all right, it's moderate, after, moderate, whatever I made it do. But for this example, Nuke got through it successful. Okay, so you can see here I save that information. And then if I go to either the individual throwing schedule, in this case I have Nuke LaLoosh that threw on the 10th. I want to select my throwing program start date as today. I do have the ability to go out to the next day. If I'm not seeing my clients today and I know that we're going to start our work week the following day, you can choose the next day, and that'll update over here as well. And then I can choose out my team throwing schedule here, and then same thing, here's my teams. Okay, this is our demo set. Again, I logged that game for Nuke LaLoosh, and then all the other players on my team here have thrown within the last week or two, and I can still set my start date. But the most important thing you got to understand is from the individual or the team side is that we want to make sure that we're inputting the data for which our players are doing. That way we get the most specific output moving forward. So you can see here that I've gone ahead and I've already desired everyone to kind of pitch in today's game. Maybe this is a spring training day and I need everyone to pitch. And the software says, okay, well, they're actually eligible to pitch, all right? And, you know, there's going to be more specific examples that we give you, or we're going to walk you through different scenarios, you know, both for team and for individuals. But for right now, you can see here that everyone is allowed to pitch for the next eligible date. And what I can do is I can just save this. No one's had any soreness. It's pretty easy. And I hit save, and boom, it's going to give me the next 7 days of what my team should, presumably follow based on an ideal scenario. Now, it's not always ideal, but you can see here as well, there's a throwing distances involved down here for each player. Their max velocity, they're 100% distance, 85% distance, 75, 50, and 30. And then there's our legend, which corresponds to the acronyms here. And then I can quickly download this throwing schedule from the coach's side and then provide the opportunity back to my players to view the output here. So I can send this as an HTML format, I can send it as a PDF, but either way, I can quickly update, send out to my players of what they should be doing for that particular day. And so, here's my entire program, and it's really quickly to be able to update. So it comes out really nice and clean, and it's just really easy to kind of have that quick conversation. But again, the most important thing that we want to do is whether it's a team view or whether it's an individual, we have to make sure in the throwing tab here, we're always accounting for the throwing volume, intensity, sorenesses, and what have you. And so that's the last point I'll make here in terms of how to use the throwing schedule. If today you can see that it's the 13th, and I was working on it day to day, but Nuke woke up both Sunday and Monday, and today he's better. Well, we know that on Sunday and Monday, what if he did wake up and he had arm soreness? I can log that. And I want to kind of know, well, if he had arm soreness on Sunday and Monday, would he be available for tomorrow's game? And you'll see that's going to flash up red as no. And then if I said, okay, well, with this still that arm soreness, what about Thursday? And you can see maybe he's available Thursday. I could hit save, and he's red for Wednesday's game, but Thursday he maybe have an option. We're going to give you more specific examples about that in our demos, but you start to see how the logic begins to work. So we have just covered how to use the overall throwing schedule and the throwing scheduler here within DVS Bullpen 3.0. We've made it super easy for you to just input the data. The throwing schedule starts to work for you very quickly, and as long as you're making sure you understand the soreness and the volumes associated with that activity, you'll be good to go. Thanks so much.